My name is Mira Ashford, 28 years old. Dad's voice sliced through the warm buzz of my uncle's birthday like a knife through frosting. You've ruined our lives. You're a burden. Forks stilled. Chairs creaked. I was still holding mine, the tine catching a glint of chandelier light, while conversations around the long table collapsed into a hush. Mom nodded, face pinched with theatrical disgust. You should be grateful we let you live there at all. We were in my uncle's dining room. Balloons, a crooked banner, laughter that turned brittle the second my parents chose me for sport. Relatives I hadn't seen in years sat with plates full and eyes fuller, watching like it was a show. I wasn't even staying with my parents for free. I rented a room, I paid rent, and for 6 years I had quietly covered a stack of their bills: internet, electricity, sometimes even a slice of the mortgage, while my sister Emily floated at home gratis, the golden exception nobody questioned. I should have seen it coming. If money ran tight, I was the problem. If stress rose, I was the reason. Even as a kid, I learned to shrink to fit their comfort. But calling me a leech in front of family, that was new. Dad kept going, warm to his theme. Do you know how much stress you've caused us? Emily's easy, responsible. She makes good decisions. That's why she deserves to be with us. He scoffed. You've been a weight on our backs since the day you were born. I looked at Emily. She sipped her drink, thumb flicking her phone, eyes trained anywhere but on me. I set down my fork, smiled at her, then stood and left the room without a word. Behind me, my uncle muttered, "Okay, that was too much," and one aunt murmured something about calming down, but my parents were still talking, the rhythm of their outrage winding up as I climbed the stairs to the room I paid for, in a house I was never allowed to feel at home in. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed. Rage didn't shake my hands. Clarity did. 6 years of it. 6 years, and one public scene was enough to blow the fog out of my head. I packed like somebody who'd learned to live light. Clothes, laptop, charger, documents. The rest could be replaced. I was done paying to be insulted. "Mira!" Mom's voice came from the hallway as the zipper closed. I walked past her, past the dining room where Dad was red-faced and mid-argument with my uncle. He turned, jaw dropping. "Where do you think you're going?" I didn't answer. I stepped outside, slid into my car, and drove. By midnight, I'd signed the lease on a studio that could politely fit me and my optimism if they both breathed shallowly. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No yelling, no guilt. The air felt new. My phone lit up with the text from Mom an hour later. "Don't come back." I stared at it, thumb hovering. Then I exhaled and typed, "Okay. I just stopped paying your bills." I pressed record on a voice message, my tone even. "I've been paying your expenses for 6 years. You told me not to come back, so I won't, and I'm not going to pay for anything anymore. I hope you can handle that. Good luck." Send. When I woke, my phone was a live wire. 50 missed calls. Then 73. Voicemails stacked so high my app groaned. Messages from Mom, Dad, Emily, and relatives who preferred not to pick sides but loved to pick up phones. The first wave was classic. "You ungrateful brat. You can't do this to your family. You owe us after all we've done." Then the guilt. "We raised you, fed you, gave you a roof. Your father is shaking. Please talk." Then the helpful relatives. "They're in a panic. Just talk to them. They're freaking out, trying to figure out where you live. Call me. This is getting out of hand." Under the pile, a text from Emily. "They're trying to pull your credit reports. Be careful." The floor tipped. I fired back. "What do you mean?" She replied, "Mom asked me for your SSN. I said I didn't know it. I think they're trying to get your financial info." Stomach drop. When I lived there, they had access to old mail, paperwork, even accounts they helped set up when I was a teenager. If they were fishing in my credit now, it meant one thing. They wanted to see what was left to squeeze. I made my first mistake then. Tell them to back off. 5 minutes later, Mom called. I answered, curiosity winning for a single reckless second. "Where the hell are you?" Her voice detonated against my ear. "What do you want?" I kept my tone flat. "How dare you do this to us?" she screamed, raw with something that wasn't love. "You think you can walk away and cut us off? You owe us." Silence from me. It made her angrier. "We can't pay our bills, Mira. We're screwed because of you." There it was. Not "I miss you." Not "we shouldn't have done that." Money. Control. "You told me not to come back," I said. "I'm doing what you wanted." A beat. When her voice came back, it was syrup. Honey, listen, let's talk. We can make a deal. Where are you? We'll come over. No. The syrup burned off. You think you're smart? We will find you. Click. My phone buzzed again. Emily. They just left the house. I think they're looking for you. How? They don't know my address. They have your old mail. Mom was on the phone with someone, like an address verification thing. And she's digging for your bank info, too. Pressure tightened around my lungs. Tell me everything, I said when Emily picked up. She explained in a rush. A late-night call to some man, the shuffle of envelopes, my name spoken like a puzzle to solve. Then she hesitated. You really pissed them off. Dad punched the wall. Mom said, revenge. Before I could ask, an unknown number lit my screen. I didn't answer. It texted instead, you need to come home so we can sort this out. We will find you either way. A chill strode down my spine. I texted Emily. If they ask, you don't know where I live. I need time. Got it, she replied. I grabbed my purse and keys. Bank first. Lock everything down. I walked straight to a teller and asked to update my address. Security questions, alerts, anything that would throw a bolt across the door. He typed, frowned. Someone called yesterday claiming to be you. Asked for balance information. We denied them. Wrong security answers. My stomach turned. I changed everything. New passwords, fresh two-factor, fraud alerts. Outside, my phone rang again. Mom, ignore. Then a text. We're close. I scanned the parking lot. A beat later, another text. A blurry photo of my car. They had eyes on me. I slid into the driver's seat, locked the doors, started the engine. Hands steady on the wheel, I pulled out. In my rearview mirror, a black SUV idled at the far end. When I turned onto the road, it rolled out behind me. Stay calm, don't go home. I took long, meandering turns, testing them. The SUV held position. Fine. You want to play? I saw a gas station ahead, swerved in. The SUV slowed, then parked at the edge of the lot. Two silhouettes inside. I stepped out like I belonged to the day. As I walked toward the convenience store, I glanced through their windshield. Dad in the passenger seat, furious eyes like coals. The driver, mid-40s, bald, steady hands on the wheel, scanning. A collector. Or worse. I bought a snack with cash and watched them through the glass. They didn't move, waiting me out. My phone vibrated. Emily. That guy might be Uncle Ray's friend. He does sketchy stuff. Money problems. Not legally. My jaw clenched. Not legally. Another text, this one from Dad. Come home now and we'll forget this ever happened. Keep playing games and it'll get messy. Messy, I murmured, and pictured all the ways that could go. I slid back into my car and pulled out hard. The SUV followed. I sped up, then faster, threading traffic until the brick facade of a police station rose like a lighthouse. I turned in without signaling and parked right by the entrance. The SUV slowed, waited, and then kept going. Good. I sat with my hands tight on the wheel until the drumbeat in my chest eased. I texted Emily. They followed me. I lost them at a police station. Not over. She replied instantly, Mom's on the phone again. Dad's furious you ran. And, Mira, I think they're planning something worse. Mom said, if we can't scare her, we'll make sure she has no choice. No choice. A quiet clarity pressed into place under my ribs. They wanted me afraid, dependent, cornered. I thought of the passwords I'd changed, the teller's frown, the photo of my car, the bald driver's scanning eyes. I thought of my boyfriend, Daniel, who had texted earlier, do you want me to come by? And the half-memory that his ex, Tessa, once had a cozy brunch with my mother by coincidence last month. Threads, some innocent, some not, all tugging at the same knot. I took a slow breath, opened my notes app, and wrote the day's first line item. Followed by black SUV, Dad passenger, unknown driver, gas station, then police station, saved screenshots, bank confirmed attempted access, two-factor enabled, evidence folder created. They had a script, so did I. The morning after the chase, I woke with my phone still in my hand. Notifications scrolled endlessly, like the screen was trying to swallow me whole. I ignored them, slipped into jeans, and laced my sneakers with deliberate calm. Evidence first, panic later. At the bank, the day before, the teller's words had stuck like thorns. Someone called yesterday claiming to be you. They were already testing locks. What if one opened? I drove Daniel's car this time. He'd insisted on trading keys for a few days, saying, If they've already got a photo of yours, you shouldn't make it easy. He said it lightly, but his eyes stayed on me longer than usual. I knew he wanted to follow, to be my shadow, but I told him no. I needed to stand alone in this. Still, his support steadied me. I thought of Tessa, his ex, the one Mom once bragged about meeting by chance at a farmer's market. That day, Mom came home with too many details about Daniel's past, details I'd never told her. The thought soured my stomach. Had Tessa given her more than gossip? I pushed it away, but the seed was planted. At the bank, I sat across from a different clerk, asked again about account attempts. He clicked, brows furrowing. There were 3 more calls flagged last night. They failed security, so nothing went through. 3? My throat tightened. In one night? He nodded. Different numbers, same questions. Balance checks. My pulse throbbed in my temple. They weren't giving up. They were escalating. I left with every alert possible, then drove with no destination, circling streets like I was the one hunting. That's when I saw it again. The black SUV. Not tailing directly, but parked 2 blocks down from the coffee shop I pulled into. Same matte paint, same tinted windows. I sat in Daniel's car, fingers drumming the steering wheel. Enough hiding, I wanted to see them. I walked inside the cafe, ordered a tea I didn't want, and took the corner seat by the window. From there I could watch. Sure enough, the SUV idled, engine humming faintly across the glass. Dad was in the passenger seat again, his face hard lines and clenched jaw. The bald man sat behind the wheel, scanning, always scanning, like a bodyguard waiting for the signal. I snapped a photo, texted it to Emily. Them again. Who is he? She replied instantly. That's Ray's friend. He's not legit, Mira. Debt stuff, collections, worse. He's dangerous. I typed, are they paying him? Her typing bubble blinked, then disappeared. Then, I think so. Mom said something about fees last night. I didn't ask. My tea sat untouched, cooling. My parents hadn't just lost control. They'd bought muscle to get it back. The SUV didn't move. Neither did I. I wanted to see if they'd blink first. After 15 minutes, Dad pulled out his phone, raised it, snapped a picture of the cafe window. My skin crawled. He was sending a message. We see you. My phone buzzed seconds later. An unknown number. Come home now. We'll forget this ever happened. Keep resisting and it gets messy. Messy. Again that word. I stood abruptly, tea untouched, and left out the side door. The SUV's brake lights flared. They wanted a chase. Fine. I drove straight toward downtown, weaving through traffic, making turns too sharp to be casual. They followed, steady but not aggressive, like they wanted me to know they could keep up but weren't in a rush. I cut left without signaling, spotted the glowing blue letters of another police station, and swerved into the lot. The SUV slowed, idled at the curb. Then, like the night before, it rolled past, disappearing into the blur of cars. I parked, breathing hard, fingers gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. They were testing me, seeing if I'd scare. I didn't move until the trembling in my hands stopped. Then I opened a fresh folder on my phone, labeled it Evidence, and dropped in every screenshot, every photo, every text. If they wanted to play a long game, I'd play longer. That night, Daniel came over, worry etched in his face. You should stay with me, at least until this stops. I shook my head. If I hide, they win. They'll think they chased me back under their roof. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, studying me. You're tougher than them. But toughness doesn't stop a car following you. I looked at him, at the earnest worry in his eyes, and for a moment I wanted to say yes. But the memory of Tessa's brunch with Mom drifted back, her laugh too loud, Mom's too knowing smile afterward. My parents were capable of pulling strings I didn't even know existed. Was I safe trusting anyone entirely? My phone buzzed again. Emily. Mom's talking to a lawyer. Dad's raging. Be careful. They said something about legal options. Legal. The word chilled me more than the SUV. They weren't just chasing. They were plotting. I texted back. Find out exactly what they're planning. Anything you hear. She replied, I'll try. But Mira, Dad said if fear doesn't work, they'll make sure you have no choice. No choice. I closed my eyes, exhaled. My parents had always relied on fear and guilt. Now they were adding force and legality to the list. But for once, I wasn't powerless. I opened my journal, the one where I used to scribble work schedules and grocery lists, and began writing it all down. Dates, times, witnesses, bank records, every thread of their desperation. Because evidence was more powerful than fear. They wanted messy, I'd give them methodical. The following morning, I sat in a lawyer's office that smelled faintly of leather and ink. My hands were tight around the folder I'd assembled overnight. Screenshots, bank statements, texts that dripped with veiled threats. The lawyer, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, flipped through each page with the patience of someone who'd seen every shade of family conflict. When she finally looked up, she said, "If they're trying to evict you after you've already moved out, it won't hold up. And the attempts to open credit in your name, that's fraud. You could press charges if it continues." Relief slid down my spine like warm water, but it wasn't enough. My parents weren't the type to stop at couldn't. They'd bend until something snapped. By the time I left her office, my phone buzzed with another message from Emily. "They're still ranting. Dad told Grandma you stole from them. Mom's crying about how you abandoned them after all they did." Of course. Rewrite the story. Make me the villain. "Let them scream," I typed back. "But listen, find out how they knew where I live. I never gave them my address." The typing bubble flickered, then, "I don't know, but Mom was on the phone with someone a few nights ago. I swear she said your name, and Tessa's. Tessa, Daniel's ex." My chest tightened. I remembered the brunch, the way Mom dropped his ex's name casually, like testing a knife's edge. Had they dug through her for information? Used her as a crack in my wall? Before I could reply, the pounding started. Not on my phone, on my door. I froze. Through the peephole, Dad, red-faced, jaw tight, Mom behind him, tears painting streaks down her cheeks, and the bald man, arms crossed, stance wide, like an extra weight pressing against the threshold. I backed up, phone shaking in my hand, then hit record. "Mira!" Dad's voice thundered, so loud it carried into the hallway. "Do you think you can just walk away? Do you think you can humiliate this family and get away with it?" Mom's voice followed, thin and quivering. "We need you. You can't do this to us. Please open the door." The bald man said nothing, only scanned the hall the way he had scanned the gas station lot, the cafe windows. I stayed silent. The pounding grew harder. Dad's foot slammed against the wood once, twice. The frame shuddered. That was enough. I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? My parents are outside my apartment trying to force their way in. I have them on video. They've been harassing me, following me, attempting fraud. By the time the flashing lights painted the walls, my parents were still shouting. When the officers stepped out, the shift was instant. Mom collapsed into sobs, pointing at me like a wounded victim. "She stole from us. She ran away. Dad cut in, his voice heavy with feigned reason. "We're her parents. She owes us. She can't just cut us off." I stepped forward, my phone screen glowing. "I don't live here anymore. They've stalked me, tried to open loans in my name, and now they're breaking down my door." I showed the officer the messages, the screenshots, the video of Dad's foot connecting with the frame. The officer turned to them. "Sir, ma'am, you need to leave, right now." Dad's face burned crimson. "She's our daughter. She owes us everything." The officer's tone didn't waver. "No, she doesn't. And if you try this again, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Do you understand?" The bald man didn't speak. He simply walked back to the SUV, sliding into the driver's seat like nothing had happened. Mom's face crumpled as she clutched at the officer's sleeve. "But we raised her." "That doesn't entitle you to her money." The officer's voice was final. I watched them retreat, their silhouettes shrinking as the SUV swallowed them whole. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one being dragged into their chaos. They were being pulled out of mine. Emily texted as soon as the police cars pulled away. "They're raging. Dad's breaking things. Mom told him you'll regret this. But Mira, I think they're finished. For real this time." Finished. Maybe. But the echo of Tessa's name in Emily's earlier text stuck like a splinter. My parents didn't know when to stop. And if they'd already roped in one of Daniel's ghosts, what else were they willing to do? I locked the door, slid the deadbolt twice, and stared at the folder of evidence on my desk. My parents thought fear would be enough to drag me back, but I had something stronger now. Proof, boundaries, and a resolve they'd never seen in me before. I spent the next 2 days in a strange kind of stillness. The studio was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the muted city sounds beyond the blinds. My phone stayed face down on the counter, vibrating now and then like a wasp trapped under glass. I only picked it up to add to the evidence folder, another text, another voicemail, another screenshot, but I didn't respond. Emily called late one evening. "They're exhausted," she whispered. "Dad's not eating. Mom hasn't left her room. They keep saying you ruined their lives." "I didn't ruin anything," I said softly. "I just stopped paying for it." She hesitated. "Mira, you need to know something." Mom met with Tessa a few weeks before all this started. She said she just bumped into her, but I heard her mention your bank info. I think she was fishing through Tessa for details. The splinter I'd been carrying slid deeper. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't know it mattered." I thanked her anyway. She was still inside the house, still tiptoeing around their rage. I couldn't blame her for not seeing the pattern from the inside. When I hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my travel journal. Its pages were filled with things I'd cut from my life to save for later. Beaches, volcano tours, handwritten notes from people who wanted me to be okay. Later had always felt like a promise someone else could revoke. Now it was a ticket with my name on it. The next morning, Daniel came by with coffee. "You don't look like you've slept," he said, setting the cup on the counter. "I have." I smiled faintly, just differently. He leaned against the counter, studying me. "I talked to Tessa." I stilled. "Why?" "Because I needed to know what she told your mom." His voice was low, careful. "She admitted your mother asked about your address, said she didn't give it, but she did confirm which neighborhood you moved to. Thought it was harmless." My jaw tightened. "And you're telling me this now because—" "Because I'm done letting her meddle," he said simply. "I told her never to speak to my family again, and never to speak to your mother again." She was crying when she hung up. Something in his tone made me believe him. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders dropped a fraction. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have warned you." "I should have asked," I replied. And just like that, the loop of suspicion loosened. That afternoon, I drove to the bank one last time to close every joint liability from my past. Old cosigns, dormant cards, anything they could weaponize. By the time I walked out, I was legally disentangled from them. They could file all the evictions they wanted. They had no hooks left in me. Emily texted later. "They're quieter now. Not better. Just quieter." I didn't answer. That night, I lit a candle in the corner of the studio and opened my notebook, the one I'd been building since this began. Page after page of dates, transfers, captions, and threats. My own history written like an indictment. At the back, I'd taped Grandma's letter. I read her words again. "You deserve that vacation. You deserve peace, even if it means peace without us." For the first time in years, I believed it. 2 days later, I booked my trip. Direct flights. An Airbnb with a balcony that looked out over the ocean. A day-long volcano tour. Every detail an upgrade from the trip they stole. I booked it quietly. No posts, no hints, no chance for them to find me again. When the confirmation email pinged, I sat back and closed my eyes. No triumph, no vengeance, just a long, steady exhale. They had tried everything. Guilt, manipulation, fraud, force, even pulling in someone from my boyfriend's past. They had tried to make me afraid, to make me dependent, to make me small. And for the first time in my life, none of it worked. The days before my flight passed in a blur of lists and quiet preparations. I set fraud alerts on every account, double-checked my renter's insurance, and slid copies of my evidence folder onto 2 separate flash drives. Not because I planned to use them, but because knowing they existed made me breathe easier. Emily called one last time. "They're still ranting," she said softly. "But it's different now. Dad's voice is tired. Mom just keeps repeating that you'll come back eventually." "I won't," I told her. "I know," she said. Then, after a pause, "I wish I could do what you did." "You will, when you're ready." We hung up, and for once, I didn't feel guilty for leaving her there. I couldn't save her by drowning with her. That evening, Daniel came over with takeout. We ate quietly, both of us pretending it was just another night. When he left, he kissed my forehead and said, "Enjoy Hawaii. Don't think about them for 1 second." "I won't," I promised, and almost believed it. The morning of my flight, I opened the mailbox in the lobby of my building and found an envelope addressed in delicate cursive. My chest tightened before I even opened it. "Grandma." Her words were steady, each line pressed carefully. "I read everything. I didn't realize how much you'd been carrying. I'm sorry. You deserve this time, Mira. You deserve peace, even if it means peace without us." I read it twice, then folded it neatly and slipped it into my travel journal, between the pages where I had taped clippings of beaches and maps. It felt like a blessing. Quiet, unconditional, free of manipulation. At the airport, I didn't post a boarding pass photo. I didn't send a group text. This trip wasn't for them to know about or ruin. It was mine. When the plane lifted off and the city dropped away beneath the clouds, I closed my eyes and thought about everything that had led here. My parents pounding on my door, the SUV idling in parking lots, the lawyer's calm voice, Daniel's quiet loyalty, Emily's whispered warnings. All of it felt like another life I had already outgrown. I touched the folded letter in my journal and let out a breath I'd been holding for years. They had called me a burden, a ruin, a thief. They had tried to scare me, chase me, bind me to them with threats and shame. But sitting in that narrow airplane seat, the clouds opening like a path ahead, I realized the truth. I wasn't their burden. I was their lifeline, and I had finally cut the rope.